everyone, here's your video going over the Law of Sines and Law of Cosines quiz review. So the first slide just kind of outlines the different types of triangles that you are going to see, and it gives you directions on how to solve for each of those types of triangles. So again, anytime you're trying to solve for a triangle, you are trying to find all three sides and all three angles. You could have an angle side triangle, angle side angle, your dreaded ass triangle, the side angle side, or the side side triangle. Now this information will not be given to you on the quiz, it's just there to help you out while you work through the quiz review. Now I'm not going to go through all of these steps, I'll just kind of go through the problems and identify what kind of triangle it is, so that if you wanted to go back and look at the steps, you can look back at the steps. So here's our first triangle. So if I look at number 1, I have side A, side B, side C, so that means I have all three sides, so I have a side triangle. I'm going to go ahead and start by drawing out a triangle so I can visually see what my triangle looks like. Now my triangles, when I draw them, are never really to scale, but I just like to have a visual of, where my sides are. So across from angle A is side A, across from B is side B, across from C, side B is 9, across from C is 6. And obviously not drawn to scale because 14 is your largest side, and the way that I drew it, your largest side is over here. So again, just don't focus so much on my drawing. Okay, so if you have a side triangle, your first step is to find the largest angle using Law of Cosines. So my largest angle is across from my largest side, and my largest side was side A, so that means I need to start by solving for angle A. So since I'm solving for angle A, I'm going to use side A to start off my formula for the Law of Cosines. So I have 14 squared equals my other two sides squared. The order in which you do this does not matter. Minus 2 times my other two sides, cosine of the angle that I'm trying to solve for. Now, anytime you are solving for an angle, you do have to simplify your expression piece by piece. So 14 squared is 196. I'm going to go ahead and add those together. So 9 squared plus 6 squared is 117. Minus, I'm going to go ahead and multiply those three together. So 2 times 9 times 6. So 108 cosine of A. Now I'm trying to isolate cosine of A. So from here, I'm going to subtract 117 from both sides. That gives me, 196 minus 117 is 79 equals negative 108 cosine of A. Divide both sides by negative 108. Forgot my 0 there. Divide by negative 108. I'm going to go to 4 decimal places. So negative 0.7315 equals cosine of A. And at this point, since I'm solving for an angle, I want to do the inverse. So A is going to equal the inverse cosine of negative 0.7315. So I'm going to put this in my calculator, and that gives me about 137 degrees. So there is angle A. From here, once you've solved for the largest angle, you then go for the smallest angle. So my smallest angle is across from my smallest side. So now I need to solve for angle C, since side C was my largest side. And the way that we do that is by going back to Law of Sines. So I'm going to write sine of C over 6 equals, now I have an angle in its corresponding side because I have A and A. So I have sine of 137 over 14. I'm going to go ahead and cross multiply. That gives me sine of C equals 6 sine of 137 over 14. I'm going to go ahead and put that expression into my calculator. So 6 sine of 137 over 14 gives me 0.2923. Again, I'm going to do the inverse sine to solve for that angle. So putting that into my trusty calculator, gives me about 17 degrees. And last but not least, to find my third angle, I'm going to go ahead and subtract both of those other angles from 180 degrees, because I know my angles in a triangle add up to 180 degrees. So let's see what angle B is. So I have 180 minus 17 minus 137 gives me 26 degrees. And now my triangle is solved because I have all three sides which were given to me, and I now have all three angles. All right, number 2. So I have angle A is 70 degrees, angle C is 20, or side C is 26, side A is 25. Again, I'm going to start by drawing my triangle. Now, this triangle could be a side angle side, or it could be an angle side side, because you have two sides and an angle, but the visual with your triangle will tell you which one it is. So angle A is 70 degrees, side A is 25, side C is 26. Now, if you look at your triangle, I have my angle, and then I have two sides that follow, which means we have our dreaded ass triangle. Don't forget, your ass triangles are a pain in the ass because you could either have no solution, one solution, or two solutions. And it all depends on what you get as you start to solve. So I'm going to use Law of Sines. Law of Sines, you need to have an angle and its corresponding side, so sine of 70 over 25. And since I have side C, that forces me to solve for angle C first. I'm going to cross multiply. So I have sine of C equals 26 sine of 70 over 25. I'm going to use my calculator. Where did that purple line come from? There we go. Let's get rid of it. So I have 26 sine of 70 divided by 25 gives me approximately 0.9773. Gonna take the inverse because I'm solving for an angle. Inverse sine gives me about 77.8 degrees. Now I am actually going to call this C1 because with your ash triangles you might have two triangles. So C1 is the angle that you first get from Law of Sines, and then I'm going to go ahead and solve for C2. C2 is going to be the supplement of C1. So I'm going to take 180 minus 77.8. And that is my possibility for C2. So 180 minus 77.8 gives me 102.2 degrees. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to separate my two pieces of information. So I'm going to go ahead and put C1 over here. So C1 was 77.8 degrees, and C2 is 102.2 degrees. And I'm going to go ahead and separate my work to solve both of those triangles. Now for both of those triangles, I still have these three pieces of information that I had to start. So I still have angle A, I still have side A, and I still have side C. So the other things that I need to find for both of these triangles are angle B and side B. So I'm going to go ahead and find B1. So B1 is going to be 180 minus 77.8 minus 70 degrees, since I know angle A is 70 degrees. So I have 180 minus 77.8 minus 70 degrees gives me 32.2 degrees. I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing for B2. So I'm going to take 180, but of course instead of 77.8, I'm going to use 102.2 minus 70 degrees, since that angle is 70 degrees. So 180 minus 102.2 minus 70 gives me 7.8 degrees. All right. So now that I have B1 and B2, I have angle B, I still need to solve for side B. So I'm going to do this in green. So I have sine of B1, 32.2, over side B equals, and I'm going to go ahead and use A and A again since that's what we had to start. So sine of 70 over 25. Going to cross multiply to get B by itself. That gives me B equals, let's see, 25 sine of 32.2 divided by sine of 70. Now, I obviously did not show all of my work for the cross multiplication, but you are more than welcome to do all the work yourself. I'm going to call this little b1. So I have 25 sine of 32.2 divided by sine of 70 gives me about 14.2. And now this triangle is solved because I have all three sides, all three angles. Now I still need to solve for my second triangle. So I have angle C, I have angle B. The last thing I need is little b2. So I'm going to do sine of 7.8 over little b2 equals, I'm still going to use A and A, so 70 degrees over 25. Going to cross multiply, so b2, oh, not b squared, b2 equals 25 sine of 7.8 over sine of 70. Let's put that into my calculator. So 25 sine of 7.8 divided by sine of 70 gives me about 3.6. And voila. This ass triangle has two triangles. This is why these triangles are a pain in the ass, because you could have one solution, no solution, or in this case, two solutions. All right, number 8, find angle A. I feel like this is kind of a trick question because I've given you angle B and angle C, so finding angle A is really easy. So my angles in a triangle add up to 180 degrees, so angle A is going to be 180 minus 80 degrees minus 54 degrees. Super easy. I wonder if that's a typo, but we're just going to go with it. So angle A is 46 degrees. Mission accomplished. All right, number 4, find side B. So let's go ahead and draw my triangle to see what we're dealing with. So A, B, C. Angle B is 91 degrees. Side A is 12. Side C is 7. So if you look, I have an angle and two sides, but this is not an ass triangle. This is a sass triangle. Side, angle, side. So with the sass triangle, we're going to go ahead and solve for the third side using the law of cosines. So since I have angle B, I'm going to solve for side B. So I have B squared equals my other two sides squared minus, oh, forgot my squared, 2 times my other two sides cosine of my angle. I'm going to go ahead and put this entire expression into the calculator. So 7 squared plus 12 squared minus 2 times 7 times 12 cosine of 91. That gives me about 195.932. And then I'm going to go ahead and take the square root. And it gives me B being about 14. And our goal was to solve for side B, which we did. Mission accomplished. All right, so I think that takes care of all of the solving of the triangles. Now let's move to area. So there's 2 formulas for area, and the way that you choose which one you're going to use depends on what you have. So if I look at number 5, I have 2 sides and the angle in between. So my formula is going to be 1/2. I'm going to multiply my 2 sides, sine of the angle in between. I'm going to plug all that into my calculator. So 1/2 times 5 times 6, sine of 120 gives me 12.99. Let's go ahead and round that to 13. So 13 centimeters squared. All right. For this next one, I have all three sides, and with all three sides, you're going to use Heron's formula. To start, we need to find this value called S, and that is when you add your three sides together and divide by 2. So I have, oh, too many equal signs there. That's weird. 8 plus 10 plus 12 divided by 2 gives me 15. Now your actual area is going to be the square root of S times S minus one of your sides times S minus another side times S minus your third side. Now take some time as you're plugging this into the calculator, because typically the only reason people get this wrong is because they're not typing in numbers correctly. So just double check as you're typing, and I get 39.7. This one doesn't have units, so I'm going to say units squared. All right, so that is area. The last part of your quiz is going to be word problems, because who doesn't love word problems? So number 7, I have 2 planes leaving an airport at the same time. One plane is flying 575 miles per hour at a bearing of 23 degrees east of north, and the other plane is flying 625 miles per hour at a bearing of 65 degrees west of north. How far apart are the planes after flying for 3.5 hours? Okay, so both the planes are leaving the airport, and they're leaving the airport in different directions. So I'm going to go ahead and draw my compass. Never eat soggy waffles to get my bearing. And I have my first plane leaving at a bearing of 23 degrees east of north. So I'm going to start at north, and then I'm going to go 23 degrees east. So here is my first angle. For my other plane, I am going 65 degrees west of north. So again, I'm going to start at north, but now I'm going to go 65 degrees. And there's the other direction of the second plane. Now each plane is flying for 3.5 hours with different speeds. So let's go ahead and find the distances for each of those planes. So 575 times 3.5 gives me 2012.5, and this is miles. So this side of my triangle is 2012.5 miles, and then my other side is going at 625 miles per hour, again for 3.5 hours. So 625 times 3.5 is 2,187.5 miles. So I'm going to label this side as 2,187.5 miles. Now going back to the question. The question is asking how far apart are the planes after flying for 3.5 hours. So this is the distance that I am trying to solve for, which I'm going to go ahead and label as x. Now if I look, I have 2 angles, the 23 degrees and the 65 degrees. And if I were to combine those 2 angles together, that gives me that big angle, which is across from side x. So 65 plus 23 is 88 degrees. If you look at your triangle, we have a side angle side triangle, which means we are going to use law of cosines. Another way that you can tell that it's law of cosines and not law of sines is because for law of sines, you absolutely have to have an angle and its corresponding side, which I don't have. The only angle I have is the 88, and the corresponding side is what I'm actually trying to solve for. So let's go ahead and start working through the formula. So x squared equals my other 2 sides squared. Let's see, 2,187.5 squared minus 2 times my other 2 sides Oh, I'm going to run out of space. Times cosine of the angle. I'm going to go ahead and take that giant expression and plug it into the calculator. Bear with me for a little bit because that's a lot of numbers to type. 2012.5 squared plus 87.5 squared minus 2 times 2012.5 times 2187.5 cosine of 88. Holy cannoli. 8528033.34. And then I want to take the square root. So that gives me about 2,920 miles. There we go. All right, last word problem. A fire is spotted from 2 lookout stations that are 10 miles apart. The bearing from the first lookout station to the fire is 52 degrees east of north. The bearing from the second lookout to the fire is 37 degrees west of north. How far away is the fire from each lookout station? So I'm going to go ahead and put my 2 stations 10 miles apart. So here is station number 1, station number 2, and this is 10 miles. Okay, now at each of those stations they have their own bearings. So never eat soggy waffles. Over here, never eat soggy waffles. And from my first station, it spots the fire at a bearing of 52 degrees east of north. So again, with your bearings, you always start on the north or the south, and I'm going 52 degrees east. So that's this angle over here. And then for my other one, I am 37 degrees west of north. So 37 degrees, I'm going to start at north and then go 37 degrees west. And this is the bearing for that side. I'm going to go ahead and extend out my line so my 2 lines actually meet. Sorry, these lines aren't very straight. So this right here must be the fire. Okay, now here's the tricky part. So the 2 angles, the 52 degrees and the 37 degrees, they are not inside the triangle, are they? No, they're sitting outside the triangle. And all of the angles that we need have to be inside the triangle. So I need to figure out this, and I need to figure out this. Well, the good thing about a compass is that each portion is a right angle, so 90 degrees. So I can take 90 degrees minus 52, which is 38 degrees. That gives me this angle down here. And I can take 90 minus 37, which gives me this angle as 53 degrees. And of course, anytime I have 2 angles, I can go ahead and solve for the third angle because the angles in a triangle add up to 180. So I have 180 minus 38 minus 53 gives me 89. Now, if I look at my triangle, I have an angle in its corresponding side because I have the 89 and I have the 10 miles, which means I'm going to use law of sines. Now let's go back and read the question. How far away is the fire from each lookout station? So I want to find this distance. So that's station number 2 to the fire. And I also want to find this distance, station number 1 to the fire. So using law of sines, I have sine of 89 over 10 equals sine of 38 over x. I'm going to go ahead and use that same ratio. So sine of 89 over 10 equals sine of 53 over y. And then using my awesome cross multiplication skills, I can solve for x. So cross multiplying, I have 10 sine of 38 over sine of, why isn't this thing writing? sine of, what was that other one? 89. And I can take that and plug it in. So 10 sine of 38 divided by sine of 89 gives me 6.2 miles. So that means lookout number 2 is 6.2 miles away from the fire. Now let's see how far away lookout number 1 is. So I have y equals 10 sine of 53 over sine of 89. Getting my y by itself, so 10 sine of 53 divided by sine of 89 is about 8 miles. It's 7.98. Let's round that up to 8 miles. Isn't there a movie called 8 Mile? I think it was about Eminem. I used to love Eminem when I was in high school. I listened to a lot of rap in high school. Okay. Sorry for that little tidbit of information. All right, so that is the entire quiz review. I hope this video helps you get prepared for your quiz. See you guys in class.